Hi everyone, I'm Shraddha, and there is something that I've realized in life that people are constantly being triggered by something or the other and they keep overthinking. And for some reason, there's no solution. So, when I was very curious and I was trying to find out about what is to be done, I came across something and I came across an expert who's apparently brilliant at what he does. His name is Dr. Atul Pednekar, and he's here with us. So, I have a very simple question to start with. What is yoga psychotherapy for you?
Before beginning with yoga psychotherapy, we also need to ask a simple question whether yoga is about any therapy or not. Because normally today we look at yoga as a form of therapy, but technically it's not so. Yoga is actually a part of spirituality.
Right,
So the question is, where does therapy come in?
right.
So now the point over here is, let us take the path of spirituality like a journey. So whenever we go on a journey, what do we do before that? Suppose you're going to take your car or you're going to go on that journey on your vehicle. Then what do you do with your vehicle?
You generally park it or you make it all ready before you leave. You check the engine and everything.
Exactly. So we send it for a servicing.
Right.
Okay, and just try to see whether there is a problem or not. We try to correct those problems so that we do not get any problems during the journey. So similarly, if we see the path of liberation as a journey itself, then the medium or the vehicle for this is our own body, mind, whatever you want to see it as. And therefore, before going on to the journey, it is very important for us to see to it that this vehicle is in the right shape,
Right.
so that it does not create any problems in the journey. And therefore, there was a form of yoga that was developed to take care of this vehicle. Unfortunately, today we don't go to yoga for the point of view of liberation.
Right.
The benefits are still there, so that's fine. So that is what we need to understand first.
Like when you say yoga, the first thing that comes in my mind is all sorts of asanas. And I'm sure this is not that. So how is this therapy very, very useful to a person? Because it just sounds amazing, but I don't know how can you use it.
So now when we think in terms of a therapy, there are various ways of creating that therapy. So for that, we need to understand there are two aspects of us, the mind and the body. We are generalizing it. If you go into details, there is the pranamaya kosha, also other things also. But in a simple way, there is a mind and a body. Now, according to yoga, the mind is more important.
Right.
And everything begins at the level of mind from the thoughts only. So every creation actually begins at the level of thoughts. And therefore, in yoga, it is the thoughts that they have to be worked upon. But let us say, if I tell you, okay, drop your anger.
Can't. It's anger, right? How do you just drop it randomly?
Exactly. So because it is difficult, we also have to take use of the other aspect, the body. So if you have heard about something called the psychosomatic connection,
Yeah.
it speaks of the effect of the mind on the body. So depending on how the mind is functioning, it is possible that slowly, if there is a lot of stress or so, it starts affecting our body.
Right.
That's one way of looking at it. And therefore, if you want to work on the physical aspects, we need to change our thought processes.
Right. But then that's the whole problem, right? Because our mind is, I keep feeling that the mind is your biggest enemy because you keep overthinking it and then you have anxiety that comes along and it's all because of overthinking. So how do you stop that?
Exactly. So now we need to work on the mind. But because it is difficult for everybody, is it possible for us to begin from the body also? Because managing the body is more easy. So there is also something called as a somatopsychic connection, means when you work on your body, even that has an effect on the mind. So asana pranayams, they work superficially, but it's important because that's more easy to follow. I can ask you, okay, just as you breathe out, just relax. I can tell you, okay, drop your anger, whatever it is. But I cannot directly tell you, okay, drop your anger. It will not work so effectively.
So what do you think a person should be taking as a journey? I mean, how is a person supposed to be starting? Because I think one of the biggest issues is that people are not ready to accept that there is a problem. What do you do with that?
Very important question and a difficult question to answer also, because technically if you see from the perspective of psychology, all of you have heard about the term anxiety.
Right.
Now there are two kinds of anxiety. One what is called as an overt anxiety, which is usually acknowledged by us, we are aware about it. So I get palpitations, I get some symptoms and I feel okay, I'm afraid about something or so. Now usually it is seen that this overt anxiety is 10 to 20% of the anxiety that we usually experience. As against that, almost 80 to 90% of our anxiety is covert. It simply means that we are not even aware about it.
Right.
Obviously, there are lots of reasons for that. Maybe we'll take it at some other point.
But then I understand that, it goes on and out. Now, how do you help people, or how do people even understand it? Because I think a lot of times people try and self-heal. And that is the reason why everybody's even going crazier. Because they try to think that they can control it. What do you think a person is supposed to be doing when they're thinking that?
Okay. So, in a sense, at least you have mentioned that there is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can I acknowledge that there is a problem? It could be a small thing also. That's
Right.
fine. So, maybe I get a headache, I'm not able to sleep properly, I get panic attacks, anxious, whatever it is. So, the entry point is always a problem. Now, normally what happens is we try to work on our problems by ourselves. Nothing wrong in that. It's like you have a mobile phone, it does not work. We just try to switch it on, switch it off, and it starts by itself. So similarly, we have learned various techniques throughout our life. We try to use that, and many times it helps. So nothing wrong in that. Use that, it's okay. I need to also find and ask myself whether it is helping me or not.
Right.
So I can give you 3 parameters basically. So whenever there is a problem, we have to always plot it on a graph, or maybe just try to do a self-study over it. The 3 pointers are basically frequency, duration, and intensity. So whatever problem it is, can I assess it on the basis of its frequency? So let us say it's a simple problem like a headache. So over a period of time, what is happening to the frequency of that headache? So initially maybe I was getting it once a week. Now I'm getting it 2 or 3 times in a week. The problem is increasing. Or maybe suppose after some time it becomes once in a month. Okay, the problem is reducing. That's one thing. The second thing is duration. So suppose I have again a headache. What is the duration of that headache? So initially suppose the headache used to stay for 7-8 hours. And now it stays for the whole day. Duration is increasing. And third thing is the intensity. So can you give some marks to it? So on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 means minimum, 10 means maximum. So on a scale of 0 to 10, what is the intensity of my headache? So initially it was, let us say, 5 or 6 points, and now it has become 8 or 10. It means the intensity is increasing. So I need to understand my problem. So here it is a very simple thing like, let us say, headache. It can also be in terms of argument. So suppose your anxiety is there, your emotional outbursts are there. How frequently am I having an argument with my family members? How frequently am I getting disturbed about a particular situation? How frequently my sleep is getting disturbed? So if I plot it on a graph, I would come to know whether my problem is increasing or reducing.
Right.
So if my problems are increasing, if I find it necessary now to take medicines, I become more and more dependent on medications, then it denotes that basically the problem is increasing. And then here at this point, it is very important that you take some professional help, not try to solve the problem by yourself.
I think that is the whole thing. Everybody just tries to solve everything.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. So my next thing to you is, how did you actually start with this concept? Like, why this thing? I mean, what motivated you to come to a yoga psychotherapy?
So if I want to share my journey as such, I'm basically a homeopathic doctor, as you know. And in homeopathy, if you know, we have to take the entire case history of that person, because homeopathic medicines depend on what is understood as the constitution of the person.
Right.
So we have been always taking the deeper case where we are trying to understand not only the physical aspects but also the mind aspects, the anxieties, the behavior patterns, etc. So that was already used to taking those kind of case histories. And then one day what happened was we used to have our meetings. So during one of the meetings, one of our colleagues just happened to mention that, okay, there are 100,000 asanas in yoga. And I was happy. Why? Because we have to take the detailed case history. Along with that, we also have over 4,000 remedies for that.
Right.
Because every person is a different individual, and to suit that, we have to give different medicines. The point is, again, we have to practically store those 4,000 medicines. If we do not do that, maybe we store around 500 to 1,000 medicines with us, and the rare medicines we just ask them to get them from the pharmacy as such. But when I heard about this, I was very happy that in a sense, now if I have an asana, I don't need to give any medicines also. No? So instead of giving a medicine, I can just give a simple asana and it will work for them. And with that simple intention, I joined the Yoga Institute, which was just 10 minutes walk from my house. So I did the basic program over there and then went on to do the teacher training course over there. But the most interesting thing that I learned over there was, first of all, the Yoga Institute did not teach us lots of asanas. It just taught us a few 10-15 asanas, which is very important. And the most important message that was given over here is that it's not about the asana, it's about the mind only.
Right.
So the asanas are supposed to have an effect on the mind. Does not matter which asana you do. You do the asana, you learn even a single asana, do it properly, it can have multiple effects on your mind also. Because every asana has infinite potentials in itself. And that is how I understood how the mind was actually very important. From homeopathy, I already knew about it, but here it got reinforced. As I completed my teacher training course, I was immediately drawn into the teaching faculty over there, because the teacher trainees over there need to understand about the anatomy and physiology, and started with those lectures. And then slowly Dr. Jaydev asked me to conduct sessions on counseling and psychology, which was very new for me because I was not a counselor. I didn't know too much about psychology, but maybe he had some faith in me. He said, no, you just start teaching, you'll learn that. And that is how my journey with the psychology aspect of yoga and the counseling part, that started enhancing, you might say. So I myself underwent a program on counseling, and then along with that the studies went on. Then I started learning other techniques like hypnotherapy, little bit about Reiki and other things, chakra psychology. And then I saw a lot of connections between most of these techniques and what was mentioned in the Yoga Sutras also.
Right.
And then slowly over a period of time, this developed.
It sounds so interesting because it's such an amazing thing to understand your mind, about how your mind functions. Now, is there a particular thing, like a particular problem that people keep coming to you like again and again, like one repeated thing that people feel and they keep coming to you for that?
Well, people usually come with problems of others only. They always have problems with people around them. Okay, this person is not doing this, that person is not doing this.
Yeah.
But as in yoga, we say finally the finger has to be pointed at us only. The problem, the root of the problem is always within me only, not
so basically
the world outside.
Self-awareness in people is missing, is
Yes.
what I see. And how do you make those people self-aware? By just like taking counseling, or what is the solution for them?
Okay. So now let us try to understand it. What do you mean by a problem? Let us try to understand that. So I might have a problem like lack of sleep. I might have a problem like anger issues, emotional outbursts, relationship problems, marriage, counseling problems, parenting issues. There are so many kinds of problems. Now, technically, unfortunately, Western psychology sees it as different problems.
Right.
It categorizes anxiety is one thing, depression is another thing. There are some connections seen over there also, but technically they are dealt with separately. From the perspective of yoga, it's very simple. Every problem at the root of it comes from an expectation.
True.
Okay? So think of any problem. My son is not studying properly. Is the problem with the son or with me? That I'm having an expectation, that's one thing. I'm not saying it's for the moment we are not dealing with right or wrong of it, but the problem is in my expectation. If there is a relationship issues, my wife is behaving like this, she does not listen to me, she keeps on complaining. That's my sensitivity, my expectation.
Right.
So at the root of everything, the main problem is always an expectation.
Right.
Okay? And therefore, the yoga psychotherapy is all about identifying that expectation where all the problems arise from.
I agree, but now expectation is the biggest issue because we live in an Indian society. We are interconnected. Everything is interconnected. So how do you just randomly just drop the expectation aspect? Because 90% of your expectations are not something that you have put for yourself.
Did I say you have to drop your
So
expectation?
then what do you do? How do you deal with this?
That is the second problem. First of
Yeah.
all, that whenever we think in terms of expectations, unfortunately, the spiritual sort of advices always come as drop your expectations. No, yoga is not talking about that. We have to identify what the expectation is, because again, what we are aware about are your superficial expectations. And at a deeper level, there are other expectations like the covert anxiety. There are lots of hidden expectations that we are not even aware about. So, the entire process of swadhyaya or introspection, reflection, you might say, is about identifying that expectation which is creating the main problem.
Okay, let's try this with an example. Okay, like take a normal man, probably around the age of 28. Now, he has this whole thing that he has to be successful in his life, because not that he really has a passion or anything, but because his family depends on him. His family has this thing that, okay, no, you need to earn so much, you need to be this much, you need to be like being married by this time. Now that expectation is not self-created, but it's completely there, and it's not that there is no way that he can evade it. So what does a person like that do? Because then he himself will put himself in that whole stress. So what can a person like that do?
Okay. So before I begin on that, let me explain. There are two steps over here. One is this reflective process of swadhyaya, where we try to understand what the expectation is.
Okay, before you start, can you tell me what exactly is swadhyaya here?
Swadhyaya is swa-adhyay, self-study, or a process of introspection or reflection. Okay. Understanding my own thought processes. Who am I? What am I? What is happening within me? That will be the process of swadhyaya. And then later on, we'll be talking about integral chakra psychology, which will help us in this reflective process.
Right.
So first of all, in a sense, if you say that, okay, I have to take care of my family, can I see that as an expectation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, right or wrong?
It's perspective.
It's a perspective.
Right.
Now, once we start understanding this, when we start reflecting on that, now we come to understand, first of all, where is it coming from? And then, slowly after questioning, I have to decide whether there is something that is justified about it and some part of it that is unjustified about it. And the counselor himself has to do that analysis and conclusions. Now, after coming to that conclusion, there are two options. One, if you believe that the expectation is out of limits, in a sense it's not that much warranted or so, then maybe I might moderate my expectation or I might drop some of my expectations. For example, let us say after coming to that reflective process, we come to a conclusion, or the counselor comes to the conclusion that it is my expectation that I need to earn 5 lakhs a month. Is it necessarily justified or so? And then through a proper dialogue, we come to no, 5 lakh is not that much necessary. Maybe 50,000-60,000 also is quite enough for me. Right. Rest of the things are just accessories. It's not that important. So we come to something that is justified. That's one thing. So the rest of it, I can drop it. So there is something that I can drop and accept the situation as and what it is. The second part is about whether if your expectation is justified, then what could be stopping you from achieving that?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. So both the paths have to be properly identified, scrutinized and then identified. We are not saying problems come from expectations, so drop the expectations. We are saying understand those expectations, understand or ask yourself whether you need to hold on that expectation or is it okay to drop that expectation. Or if you feel that that expectation is justified, then is it possible for you to ask why you are unable to fulfill that expectation from yourself? What is the change that you need to bring about in yourself to make yourself capable to fulfill that expectation?
Right, all said and done. But now I'm talking about a person who's already overthinking. Now, for that person to reach this realization is going to take forever and probably like years to come, because nobody wants to say something like that and they don't want to talk about it openly. So then that person is always going to be in a rut in his own head. Is that how it can be?
So it depends on you. Unfortunately, people do not take counseling help as such. Let me just go to those reasons also. First of all, in a sense, we have something called as the covert anxiety, as we said, that we are not even aware that we have some anxiety. Okay? So, whenever there is a problem, you experience some problem, understand at the root of it there has to be some anxiety that you are not aware about. If you are not able to decode that, please take some professional help before it goes over your head. That's one thing. Along with that, there are reasons as to why we make it overt. So there is something called as defense mechanisms also, coming from a simple thing that there are two aspects of us. One is a rational mind and one is an emotional mind.
Right.
Okay? And what if I tell you that all of our problems come from our emotions?
True.
Okay? And the problem is that the emotional mind is irrational.
Yeah. You just make it bigger in your head, whether it's there or it's not there, doesn't matter.
And the second problem is we are not able to relate with the emotional mind. For example, if I ask you, suppose you get anger and I have to counsel you why you get angry. No, my mother shouted at me unnecessarily. So what happened? No, nothing happened. That's a logical answer.
Yeah.
But I cannot go beyond that because the conscious mind is rational.
Right.
The emotional mind is subconscious. It's functioning at a very subconscious level, and we do not want to see ourselves as that irrational person. We have always thought of ourselves as the rational person. So when we start doing our own introspection, the Swadhyaya process, unfortunately what happens is the irrational part of us starts coming to the surface, which we are not able to acknowledge, and then we again push it down and we say, Sab theek hai, everything is fine. And that is where basically
that's how the world is going on. Sab theek hai, everything is good.
Yeah. So that is where slowly the defense mechanisms start coming up. We try creating various mechanisms just to say that everything is fine, I do not have any problems. Externally, everything is fine. It's like you're pushing everything under the carpet. It's like a guest comes suddenly. Within 5 minutes, you have to clean up the room. We stuff everything inside the cupboards. From the outside, everything is clear. And you know how things are hidden inside. And then after 3-4 years, even you forgot what you have stuffed inside your own house.
And you just become like something that's overloaded.
Yeah.
So basically what I gauge from this whole thing is that self-awareness is the most important thing. If you're not aware of what you are going through, what you're feeling and how you want, nobody can help you.
Yeah.
So it's like first you accept and then you go to a professional.
And the problem is we are not taught to be self-aware.
True.
Let me give a simple example. You just go on the YouTube, look at the different videos that are shown over there. How basically for every problem there are advices that are given.
So many.
These are quick fixes. These do not address the real problems inside. We are never taught to ask the question why.
Yeah.
Because the real answers are hidden in that why. Why am I feeling this? But unfortunately, whenever there is a problem, there are short, quick answers, quick fixes that are given.
See, to this, no, I have this thing that, I think this is a problem with the society here because usually when a man has a problem, they're like, you're a man, fix it. Like, you don't let that human being be. If it's a woman, you just end up telling her, this is how life is. You just have to accept everything, compromise and just live. Now, when you're already shunning somebody out of emotions, how do you expect that person to be self-aware of anything?
It's true. But that's a part in the sense of our conditioning from the society itself. And when you spoke about the man versus the women, I am happy actually that females they are considered as a weak person. There is an advantage in that. At least they accept their problems.
Yeah.
They seek help. They don't find it awkward to ask for help. That's a good thing. Males have larger egos. Maybe they are made to see as strong. They want to maintain that image. And therefore, males usually, in a sense, end up suffering more because they end up pushing their problems inside and then suddenly it breaks.
Because all the pressure is at them and then they're just told that they are going to be doing it. And nobody knows how. So it's just like a miracle way of life. And then I don't know about this is still happening or no, but then a lot of times if you are asking support from someone or even if somebody comes to know in your society that you're going for probably to seek help, they term you as somebody who's not fine, is not deemed fit because you cannot take proper decisions.
Absolutely.
And that's completely wrong.
Yeah. Let us take a simple example.
Yeah.
Suppose you have a fever And what will your family say?
They'll either give me a paracetamol or take me to the doctor.
Okay, so go and meet a doctor.
Yes.
Okay, suppose you get angry and they say go and meet a counselor.
Oh, they don't say that. They tell you calm down.
That's one more thing. But before that, suppose somebody tells you go and meet a doctor. As against that, suppose you get angry and somebody tells you go and meet a counselor. What are you comfortable with?
I would just say it's okay. Just anger, I will heal it myself.
Yeah. Do we have a taboo of meeting a counselor? Does the society show a taboo?
We do. Majorly.
And that also has a lot of pressure on us. It's like if I have a fever, I go to a doctor, that's considered normal. But when it comes to the mind, no. I have to deal it with myself, because over there, everything from inside will be opened up. I will be labeled as somebody.
Yeah.
That creates most of the problems. And therefore, people take a lot of time to go and meet a counselor.
Right, because for them, it's like, one, I'm very sure people do not like talking about their deepest, darkest secrets, because for them, it's very dark. Which is actually bigger in their head is something I assume. I'm not sure. I'm not a counselor. So, but then again, like the whole bit is that at what stage is this person supposed to be understanding that person needs counseling?
Technically, every moment. Because there is no stage. The point is basically we have not been taught to understand ourselves. Because every moment we are just being given quick fixes. Like we said, all problems come from expectations. Drop your expectations. No.
Yeah.
If you drop all your expectations, the world will stop functioning. So we need expectations. We need, otherwise the motivations will go away.
Yeah.
If you have anger, drink water. If you get angry, count from 1 to 100 or 100 to 1. These are the simple answers that are given. Nobody is trying to go in the depth of it, trying to understand why am I getting angry. And that is also a problem of the quick fixes that are shown on the YouTube, you might say, or most of the media today. Where unfortunately, so even in yoga, you might say, spirituality also contributes to that. When we think in terms of Bhagavad Gita or so who's supposed to give me the solutions? God is supposed to give me the solution.
Right.
So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to pray to God. Why can't I just ask the question to myself? Why, suppose there is a God, is the God supposed to come and help me in each and everything? Has God made me so weak, so sort of poor that in a sense no capacity to heal myself? Is God that bad? Does God want you to be so much dependent on Him?
I think it just goes back to self-blame. It's like, I am bad, I am this, I am that. It's like, it just goes in a very crazy space again.
Sure, that's one more thing, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, I think from my understanding, what I understand today is be a lot more self-aware, seek help whenever needed, because that is important. And for more amazing content, we'll come back to you. Thank you.